Hello, YouTube. It's your boy, Chrissy J. Back in action, alright? I'm in the fast lane, literally. And mentally, I hope. I recorded a video yesterday, which I don't think I'm going to upload, at least right now. I might make it private or something. It was all about MDE, which is a subject I don't... Every time it comes up and I'm forced to, like, play this game of dissecting it, it just, I don't know, there's just such a strong fanboy thing going on there. In a nutshell, what I said in that video, which I'll restate briefly, I'll try to restate briefly what I said there before moving on to what I want to talk about, namely Rumpelstiltskin. The story of Rumpelstiltskin and what it can teach us today. But what I said briefly about MDE is there's an issue of cynicism. You know, it's worth meditating on the problem of cynicism. Cynicism which masquerades as realism, as hard-bitten, hardcore realism. You know, like in the emotional life of anybody, like anger often masks sadness. Right? We've all been there. You're sad about something, you feel injured. Then you, rather than show weakness, you know, you steel your teary eyes and puff up like a blowfish. You know, show your fangs. I'm sympathetic to it. It's human. It's also animal. But it's you know, but pursued to the extreme, it becomes problematic. And furthermore, like comedy, the muse of comedy. I don't know. I'll need a refresher from Paul, I guess, on the 9 muses. I'm always forgetting them. I'll get it down one of these days, Paul. But you know, whoever the muse of comedy is, you know, in the pantheon of comedy, P.G. Wodehouse, like, I don't know, Nathan Fielder, even. Such things are Norm Macdonald. Pick someone who really makes you laugh. Red Skelton, for all the boomers in the audience. No disrespect meant. Red Skelton is great, and Norm Macdonald pays respects to Red Skelton, by the way, for whatever that's worth. Anyone who's following all the minutiae of these back and forth over the tube. But in the pantheon of comedy, like, you know, the true, pure comedic artists, they're after laughter. They're not after some kind of social critique. Such things are wrapped up in comedy, of course, like they're wrapped up with anything, with art itself, painting, with poetry. Robert Frost, that's an interesting thing to say about that. I just found out last night. Anyway, a little far afield. I guess I'm just trying to say, there's something there which is at one point presented itself as the PR, you know, is that it's comedy being axed, being censored. It's partially true and partially not, because underneath the comedy there's a lot of rancor. And I get that that's often the case with comedy, but the thing about comedy is that the thing about the truly comedic is a comedian, a born comedian, can enter into a room and lighten the mood. So I think natural comedians are fundamentally are conciliating influences. I mean, there's a bit more nuance there, but essentially it's to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. So, you know, one can be unjustly censored and so on, but fundamentally comedians are those who forced to spin thread into gold or something like that. Increasingly stupendously unreasonable demands, sort of like hostage-taking demands, are made by this character of Rumpelstiltskin, who appears in the story at first as just sort of this unnamed gremlin, and then to be freed of his demands, of I forget whatever hostage he's taken, or whatever blackmail he's threatening. To be freed of it, the protagonista, has to give his real name, has to find out his real name. So, she sneaks out at night and finds him dancing around the fire. I think it's like the night before she's about to be his bride or something like that for all of time. And she finds him there gloating around the campfire. Some kind of ditty about how his name is Rumpelstiltskin, and no one will ever guess it. Just linguistically, it's an interesting name. Not linguistically necessarily, but think about the name. Rumpelstiltskin. So stilts. He's a short little guy, and stilts are something that brings you higher up to the sky. So stiltskin. The skin of stilts, I don't know, stilts as kinds of snakes, serpentine stilts that shed their skin. Stilt skin, rumpled. It's been lying on the ground for a while. Just, it's funny and it's suggestive of something. I think that my read on that story, which I guess I'm trying to share now, along with whatever relevance it might have, my read on the story of Rumpelstiltskin is that it refers to that story is kind of about how when you can name a thing, you have power over it. So as long as Rumpelstiltskin remained this nameless gremlin figure, he had power. But the moment that his real name was revealed, spoken aloud, he rumpled like so much stiltskin. convinced of his way of seeing all that, and in comparison, my visual art efforts seem somewhat. I don't want to like say they're nothing, but they just seem less serious to me. I think I had, at the time, was investing them with more of a sense of purpose than they really deserved. I mean, they're cool. I like them. I might return to that at some point, but it's got a bit of the gee whiz to it, a bit of the gee whiz factor. Too much to it. Always, even the visual art stuff often incorporate sort of like short couplets or phrases or in a word, poetry. So, in an ideal world, in a Renaissance age of man as he is intended by nature to be in the Imago Dei, image of God, Almighty Father, three in one. All of us ought to be engaged in all things, really, because everything relates to everything. And then the nine muses do a collective dance. So, history, dance, music, cosmic sentiments, whatever they all are. It all sort of flows together. So, but the idea of naming something, right? The idea of naming someone a poet, or it's figured in my life recently because I've been talking to friends of mine, and one of them is a lawyer in D.C. who's always very eager for my opinion about stuff, because I was the editor of our student newspaper, The Gadfly, back at St. John's College, and I was the first person who published his work, and I guess it encouraged him back at the age of 18. And now he's constantly writing on Medium.com and submitting articles to law review journals and so on. And I've, as a consequence of becoming more serious about my own writing, I'm no longer indulging his self-indulgence as much as I did in the past, because I think in the past I used to look at his stuff and see someone, trying and deserving of a participation award, but more recently I've just said to him that, like, man, you've been sucked into this academic world, and you've been hankering and striving after participation awards your whole life, and you have to get out of this participation award mindset, because it's badly detrimental to the quality of your writing, if that's something that you genuinely intend to pursue as more than a scrapbook of memorabilia, of personal, there's an aphorism in it's either Kierkegaard or Wittgenstein, one of the two, who recalls, like, looking through old correspondences and thinking, oh, what a wonderful book this would be for people to read, and then the next thought being, wait, no, that's all wrong. No one's going to want to actually read my personal correspondences because they lack all context. And so his writing has a bit of that problem to it, because he brings in stuff that he finds fascinating, but he doesn't justify it. Or anyway, the point about naming, though, is that I kind of have named him, whether he acknowledges it or not, as a historian at heart. He has a real great mind for dates, for remembering various battles and constitutional amendments and treaties and all of that kind of thing. He cottons to that very well. Maybe that's partially due to him studying law, but I think even before that, it's just it's part of his makeup somehow. So anyway, I've been endeavoring to do that with different people, who I have long-standing conversations with, who I know well, and and I don't know. Just realized I don't know if I'm going to be able to fully make it to the finish line at this point about naming. Maybe someone can help me out, or maybe thoughts will come to me in the future, and I'll make a second part here to bring the Rumpelstiltskinian insights more strictly to bear. But yes, the story, and another friend of mine, I think really is kind of a scientist at heart. By all rights, ought to have been a kind of a physicist or something. And the thing that's so tragic, I think, about the modern world is that people's talents are not nurtured. People are incentivized to labor after the fruit that perisheth, right? And if anyone really does try to hone their soul and become the thing that they're intended to be, because I think everyone, without turning into too much of a Pollyanna, because I'm not really trying to be delusionally optimistic. I don't want to be cynical either, but I don't want to be delusionally optimistic. A lot of people won't ever capitalize on their talents, and things will remain dormant. But I think in seed form, I believe that everyone does have these dormant talents. Not that everyone's going to be a great artist or a great thinker. There are more humble manifestations of these things, but in the lingo of the Latin lingo of Church Catholica, we are all intended to be saints. Whether we like it or not, if we make it to heaven, we'll have to become saints, because only saints make it past. The TSA, St. Peter's TSA department. You like Moses in the burning bush. You got to check your shoes at the conveyor belt. Meaning, shoes, biblically, Old Testament style, as a kind of symbol of outward ostentation, a way of masking your true self, the fungus between your toes, what makes you you. So, unearthing that, scavenging after that, finding that, in spite of it all, in spite of everything that would have you not do that, that would seduce you into an easier conception of things, a more cozy and comfortable conception of the world as a recreation center, the world as a kind of recreation center. You just while away your time until it's over. Anyway, that was a pretty solid 23 minutes. I'll just leave it at that. Maybe I have something more to say.